Hi there, everyone. This is Dorsey 2K7, aka Son of Sky States. I hope you're having a fantastic Monday evening and whatnot. Well, as you may know, I just want to give you a heads up. You know, Twitter, the website that turns to be a total shit show and a half, where they let the worst of the worst be on that son of a bitch, and everyone try to act like, oh, they're a victim and all that bullshit. Well, we got some news, and it's a mix of both bad, good and bad news. In more ways than goddamn fucking one. Okay, dokie. How should I put this up? Okay, let's talk about it. All right. Jack Dorsey, Jack Dorsey has stepped down as CEO of Twitter. Yes, that is indeed true. I'll run it by you. I'm reading this from the New York Times. Twitter's Jack Dorsey stepped down from CEO role. The social media pioneer, whose name has been synonymous with the company, was replaced by Twitter's chief technology officer, Prag Ogawa, whatever the fuck his name is. Jack Dorsey stepped down on Monday as chief executive of Twitter, the social media site he co-founded in 2006 and navigated through the tremendous years of the Trump administration and increasing calls for regulations from lawmakers around the world. He is being replaced by Prague, who is the company's chief technology officer, who had recently been working on technology associated with cryptocurrencies, which have become a fascination of the tech industry power brokers, including Mr. Dorsey. Mr. Dorsey's exit marks a significant shift at the company, which has navigated years of pressure from investors who thought it did not make enough money and criticism from Washington, particularly from Republican lawmakers who have claimed Twitter has helped stifle conservative voices on social media. Which they are. I mean, let's be real, which they are. The most prominent of those voices was the former President Donald J. Trump, who used his Twitter feed to threaten his enemies and to keep his allies in line. Bullshit. Twitter barred Mr. Trump shortly after the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Yeah, barred him. Yeah, barred him. Yeah, bar him, but yet won't get rid of the Taliban. But whatever. Mr. Dorsey, 45, who is also the chief executive of the payment Square company Square, was fired from the top job at Twitter in 2008, but returned in 2015. His departure represents the second recent significant shakeup of the major social media company. Last month, Facebook rebranded itself to Meta. The change was accompanied by a new corporate logo and the emphasis on a virtual world called the Metaverse. But Mark Zuckerberg, its high-profile chief executive, will still run the company, the Metaverse. Okay, did he really make that up, or is this something, or he got that from Persona? The departure of Mr. Dorsey is a critical change of the guard for the company. Mr. Dorsey today has been as closely associated with Twitter as Mr. Zuckerberg has been with Facebook, although Twitter is nowhere near as large. Mr. Dorsey has become a celebrity outside of Silicon Valley, parodying on Saturday Night Live and needling on his own social media platform for his long facial hair and his personal wellness pursuits. If I stand back, If I stand back and you think about who had a big influence on social media over the past decade, the name Jack Dorsey will always come up. Well, it's going to come out, said Tim Haber, an assistant professor of management at the University of Notre Dame Mendoza College of Business. Like Mark Zuckerberg, Mr. Dorsey has been called to Washington to testify about his company's content moderation and censorship complaints. But the decision to remove Mr. Trump's account was made by one of Mr. Dorsey's lieutenants, in contrast with Mr. Zuckerberg's direct involvement in high-profile moderation decisions. Mr. Dorsey was working on a private island in French Polynesia when it happened, adding the concern that he was not fully engaged with his company. Mr. Dorsey said in an email to Twitter employees, which he also posted publicly, that he wanted Twitter to stop being a founder-led company, which could be a weakness over time. I work hard to ensure this company can break away from its founding and founders, Mr. Dorsey wrote, adding, I believe it's critical for a company to stand on its own, free of its founders' influence and direction. There are many companies to get rid There aren't many companies to get to that level if there aren't many founders who choose their company over their own ego, Mr. Dorsey said. A Twitter spokeswoman declined to comment beyond the announcement. Mr. Dorsey's plan was first reported on CNBC. Mr. Dorsey's leadership and focus has been questioned by employees and investors for some time. His departure came a year and a half after he survived an attempt ouster from an activist investor, Elliott Management. Chief chief among Chief among Elliott's concern was that Mr. Dorsey's attention was divided between the two companies he led. The firm believed that the Twitter has fallen behind social media rivals in increasing its stock price and adding innovative new products. Some employees rally around Mr. Dorsey during the attempt to force him out, using the hashtag #WeBackJack as a rally cry. Mr. Dorsey left. Oh. On March 2020, Elliott Management struck a deal with Silver Lake, one of Silicon Valley's biggest investors in technology companies, that allows Mr. Dorsey to remain at Twitter. The deal also gave Jesse Cause, the Elliott executive who oversaw the Twitter campaign, a seat on Twitter's board. Ms. Cohen joined a 5-member committee that led a review to Twitter CEO succession planning. Last November, the committee completed its review and said that it has updated the CEO succession plan in line with the best practices, according to a regulatory filing laying a path for the transition. Twitter stock began to climb, and in February, Mr. Dorsey announced an ambitious plan to double Twitter revenue by the end of 2023. The company also sped up its product pace, releasing new features like audio chat, newsletters, and tipping. Mr. Cole stepped down from Twitter's board in June. Our collaboration with Jack and the company for the past 2 years has been productive and effective, Mr. Cole and Mark Starber, the senior portfolio manager at Elliott, said in a joint statement. They also praised Mr. Agarwal and Brett Taylor, the president of Salesforce and Twitter's incoming board chairman, saying, "We are confident that they are the right leaders for Twitter at this pivotal moment for the company." But some Twitter stock market gains have slipped away in recent months, with shares now worth roughly the same as they were a year ago. Twitter said its revenue grew 37% in the third quarter from a year prior to $1.28 billion, but it lost $537 million. Some legislators have demanded that Twitter do more to address misinformation and hate speech on the platform, while others have accused Mr. Dorsey of censorship and argued that Twitter should allow more content to remain online. The moderation issues have been a persistent irritation for Mr. Dorsey. He has visited Twitter as a platform for free speech and busted the idea of removing content, especially for world leaders and other newsworthy figures. Mr. Trump's incendiary tweets tested Mr. Dorsey says. Twitter at first compromised by labeling some of Mr. Trump's tweets as misinformation, but finally removing his account. Yeah, bullshit. Mr. Dorsey will remain on Twitter's board until its next election in 2022. Stressed that he made the decision to leave and had not been forced to go. He recently discussed his desire to leave Twitter and to focus on projects like cryptocurrency and philanthropy, said a person familiar with his thinking who was not authorized to speak publicly. In the recent years, Mr. Dorsey has become increasingly interested in cryptocurrency and the principle of technology decentralization. He said in 2019, that Twitter would help to build a decentralized form of social media that would allow users to set up their own algorithms by promoting content and moderate their own communities rather than rely on tech companies to make those decisions. Mr. Dorsey tapped Mr. Agarwal to oversee Twitter's contribution to the project, known as Blue Sky, which is funded by Twitter but operates independently. In August, Twitter hired Jay Graber, a cryptocurrency developer and the founder of social events startup, to lead Blue Sky. Mr. Agarwal, 37, is a low-profile figure who started his career in Twitter over a decade ago as an engineer. He worked his way up through the company and was made its chief technology officer in 2017. Prague has been behind every critical decision that helped turn this company around, Mr. Dorsey said in an email. My trust in him as our CEO is bone deep. The majority of Mr. Dorsey's wealth comes from Square, which he co-founded in 2009 during his last departure from Twitter. Last year, Mr. Dorsey announced that he would donate $1 billion, or nearly a third of his total wealth at the time, to relief programs related to the coronavirus and other philanthropic endeavors. Mr. Dorsey has also given $15 million to guarantee income projects, which allows cities to provide financial support to residents in need. Forbes estimates that Mr. Dorsey's net worth is over $11 billion. Twitter stock jumped 5% on the news of Mr. Dorsey's departure before it halted trading. It closed down about 2.7%. On Sunday night, perhaps foreshadowing the news to come, Mr. Dorsey said, "I love Twitter." Yeah, and speaking about Prague, Well, here's a tweet that he said that should bring up some alarm bells about this. The tweet he made on October 26th, before this happened, was this, and I quote: "If they're not going to make any distinctions between Muslims and extremists, then why should I distinguish between white people and racists?" Yeah, yeah, I feel like this is not gonna look bad. You think Twitter is fucked now? Oh, it's about to be super duper fucked. And man, oh man, it's not gonna be pretty. It's really not gonna be pretty. It's really not. But anywho, that's just my 2 cents of the whole thing is. But I would like to know what you think of this whole craziness. As always, be sure to leave a comment, like this video, subscribe to this channel, click the notification bell so you don't miss another update, share with friends, share your neighbors, share your significant others, and that's about it. Until next time, this is Dark Shadow 2K7, aka Sonic Sky 6, signing off. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to watch this video. It really means a lot, and I'll see you in the next one. Catch you later. Peace. So, we got rid of one asshole, and now we're going to have to deal with another asshole who's 10 times worse than the other guy. Man. Twitter is fucked. Oh, wait. Let me check. Yep, they're fucked.